It's the final lap for the primary race. 3 Democratic candidates on the ballot for Guam delegate: Amanda Shelton, Michael Nicholas, and Ginger Cruz, and the lone Republican incumbent James Moylan. In this episode of The Hub, we revisit our discussion with each candidate.
We are at a critical moment in Guam's history, and I think that Guam needs respectful, effective, collaborative leadership to move our agenda forward in Washington. And Guam has been my lifelong home. It's really the heartbeat of my identity, and it's my shared experience with you, with all of the people of Guam, the listeners tonight, that have shaped my values, that have fueled my commitment to public service. And so that has been my background, serving now in the legislature for the last 3 terms. And it's really been such an honor and such a privilege to give myself this way to the people of Guam. And of course, it gives me so much fulfillment as well to know that this is my home. This is the place that I want to build up for future generations, for my hopefully future family and all my godchildren that are going to live here and stay rooted here.
So you know how you have these native contractors here for the Hawaiian companies, the Alaskan companies, they get priority on these federal contracts while our own native contractors don't get that. So we wanted to bring that conversation back onto the table. It hasn't gone anywhere since we've moved it while we were in office. We want to get it going again. But by opening that native window and getting the native contracting recognition, that will then open the door for us to also be able to start pursuing native recognition for housing programs. And there's millions and millions of dollars for native housing. That'll help us open the door to get native recognition for education programs, millions for education. Open the door for health care, millions for native health care. And that'll provide a different resource for us to be able to tap into federally that can help to relieve pressure on the general system by having more native resources being put into the community here on Guam to address that on a native basis, helping the greater system have less pressure from that particular segment of the community, and then bringing down housing prices, putting more money into education, putting more money into healthcare. Those are things we can do.
Every single war game that talks about any sort of conflict with China over Taiwan, one of the first things that's going to happen is Guam will be attacked. Same token with North Korea. I think there need to be a lot more serious discussions about the type of support, the type of planning, the type of understanding that we have on Guam about the threat that we face. Because this island is it's irreplaceable. It has a people, it has a culture. Every single life is precious. And the new general taking over for the Indo-Pacific, it was very interesting. He just testified before Congress. And he said the most important priority for him is the 170,000 Americans that are living on Guam, which is absolutely true. But we need to have a serious discussion on Guam about preparedness, about understanding the threats, about actively understanding that deterrence, because this isn't just about protecting the bases. This is our lives. This is everything. It's our existence.
For Guam, if you want businesses to grow, you have to have resilience in your infrastructure, and that's very important. And we've been taking that further, working with the administration, working with the governor's office, we just had meetings with JB and other utilities and other agencies on the island. How can the federal government help support our local government and these agencies? And we're doing that right now through the relationships we build with my colleagues in Congress. That resiliency is important. We're going to get hit by another typhoon. Hopefully it's another 30 years. We're going to be hit by another disaster, but the strength of our people and the strength of our infrastructure is important. We're working with Department of Defense, we're working with FEMA, we're working with other agencies, and they know what we need. And Indo-PACOM area situation, which I'm a part of, by working with the House Armed Services Committee, an important committee for a member to be on, especially in Guam.
Welcome back to The Hub. Here's more from your candidates for Guam delegate.
But what's not happening, and this is not just a problem on that issue, but it's a problem on many other local issues, is, the office today has become mute. We were very vocal. We were very much out there advocating for the use of resources. Where are these monies? How are they being deployed? What's the timelines? Helping to kind of keep the spotlight locally so that it's not just a matter of doing things federally and, oh, you know, whatever happens, happens, but actually coming back home and saying, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you're really going to follow through on the public service, you know, side of the equation, you're gonna make sure that it's happening. And so there's been no follow through. You know, we have all these federal resources, whether it's ARP, whether it's money going into education. There's no follow through anymore today saying, hey, where are these resources? Are they being deployed? Is the money going to expire? Do we lose it or when? None of that's happening. And so we've brought that money in for the livestock co-op. We've brought that money in for the fishermen's co-op. Nothing's happening, and no one's speaking up about it federally. You know, again, the office has gone mute.
I'm a product of Guam. And the one thing that I am eternally grateful for is when I went to Washington, D.C., and I served as a Deputy Assistant Secretary at the U.S. Department for Housing and Urban Development, really getting into domestic issues. I worked directly for Andrew Cuomo, who was the Secretary at the time. And then, you know, in my career, I was lucky enough to be the Deputy Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction, where I got to report to the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State, and report to 8 committees in Congress.
Proud moment for a local girl there.
That was a lot. And you know, it was a moment where you really felt like you were contributing to the nation's security. I served for 8 years in that position, and I served in Iraq under fire. I was a 2-star general equivalent on the civilian service side. And so as a civilian part of the Department of Defense, still had to wear the body armor.
I'm a vet, I mentioned that. We had several meetings with veterans organizations. Just the other day also, we had a big presentation. This is the year of the veterans as well. I was there with the administration, the governor, lieutenant governor, and myself presenting. But for Congress, on our side, we had to push for measures where our vets are struggling with the people of Guam are struggling with as well. Agent Orange. Right. We were able to expand the time frame on who's the eligibility for this, and that's very important. There's also the measure about RECA. That we pushed for that. We pushed for that in Congress. It got higher than it ever did before. It didn't make it all the way, but the fight is still continuing on. With the House and with Senate side too. We have that relationship. We need to provide for the funding, and that's where we're working to get as well. So let's take care of our vets, let's take care of the people of Guam, and let's move these things further.
I think what is front and center in everyone's mind is our relationship, our role as a national, our island zone defense and national defense strategic place in the world, and the imbalance of power but in our relationship between the United States and the island of Guam. And also being a target for these other nations who look to project power in the Pacific region or who simply want to do harm to the nation. You know, that's very clear to all of us right now. Every time we hear a threat, every time we read something in the news, and these are things that are really front and center in all of our minds. And so, of course, my platform is centered on the military buildup and things surrounding that, as well as infrastructure of our island, transportation, sustainability, education, healthcare for the people of Guam.
Welcome back to The Hub. Here's more from your candidates for Guam delegate.
You've got to hire staff that are incredibly experienced. So I've already reached out to folks that I know on the Hill, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. We used to work together when I was working for Andrew Cuomo. She's now the senior senator, or the junior senator under Chuck Schumer for New York, but she's been there a long time and she's got a lot of experience. People like that, talking to them and finding some key professional staff with 20, 30 years experience who absolutely know how to navigate the Hill, recruit them to come and work on the Guam team.
Okay.
And to be our weapons, to be the people that help us to all of a sudden, I mean, we don't have the experience ourselves. We don't have time to, spend 10 years learning it. So we need to have a congressional office that recruits key pieces of expertise to supplement the local expertise and have advisors here in Guam who know those Guam issues, put it together and have an office that punches above its weight.
Or not too long ago, the governor came on out with Jesse Alec, representing the mayors, to talk about the importance of Guam's needs for COFA funding to continue. We had to fight for that really hard because it wasn't done previously. And here we are, and now we're fighting for that. That's a challenge I have as well, and that's why I want to continue on as a representative to see this through. You know, and I got to continue to make that happen. There's other things, medical portability, that's there, SSI, that's there, a lot more things. Our borders.
Yeah.
Guam Customs is in charge of our borders, but they don't have the resources to do that. The federal government is placing demands, unfunded mandates upon the Guam Customs Authority. If you're going to do that, then federal government, you better assist. You better provide training. You better provide services. You better provide bullets, even, right? Let's do this right. And if we had to federalize it, then we federalize it. If we're going to give more funding, then we give more funding. But that discussion has begun.
The thing I would do absolutely is to thank God and to thank the people of Guam for putting their trust and their confidence in me, the platform that I'm presenting, the agenda that I want to carry out as their delegate to Congress. I think that's most important, to show my gratitude. And of course, I would contact our delegate, Jim Moylan, because we are friends. We served in the 35th and 36th Guam legislatures. We've worked very well together.
Keeping those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would talk to him so that we can ensure a smooth transition between our offices to make sure that there's no interruption in service to the people of Guam. I think that's super important. And then I will, really compile all of the information, all of the concerns and the suggestions that I heard along the way on the campaign trail, because there have been so many people that I've met, from our island leaders, military leaders, business people, Manumku, our Manhoban, everyone who has something to share, and their voices are so important.
And one of the things that you come away with being in public office for a while is, Steny Hoyer, the majority leader back in the Congress, put it best when I had a conversation with him. He said, there's two kinds of horses. There's show horses and there's work horses, and you always need to ask yourself and constantly gut check yourself, which one are you? And so, in our public service arena, we have the same choices, and I really would just like to implore our people: we need to pick more workhorses. We need to drive things. We need to drive things into the outcome phase and beyond just the discussion phase, or even the headline phase and the political phase. So, that's the first thing that I think, in this election, I would like to just kind of bring up and put into the hearts and minds of our people is, let's go and let's vote for that kind of public service.
Welcome back to The Hub. Here's more from your candidates for Guam delegate.
There's a lot more that needs to get done. My goals with COFA, the fight, working closely with this administration, we're united to get things done. If you can't work closely with the administration, there's only one voice in Congress. And we had to trust each other that we're doing the right thing for the people of Guam. And that's being said and moved forward. If you have two different opinions between federal side and administrative side, the United States Congress has a lot of the other things to worry about if we're not united. I can tell you, I may agree with not everything, but I'm sure the right things that we got going is moving us forward. Working closely with the administration, working tightly with the agencies here on Guam, and being out there, being transparent for the people of Guam. Having a great interview with you, Nick, that's important, so that people know. And I come back as much as possible, because that presence in DC. I'm going to tell you something funny.
Okay.
I get my doctor's checkups all the time. I do my exercises. I'm in good shape. But he says, you're lacking one thing. What is that? He said, vitamin D. He said, oh my gosh. Well, being in Washington, D.C., and it's taken away my vitamin D, I want to be home more often. So I'm making it a point I come home as much as possible. So, and that's important, and so I can talk with the people of Guam. When I get back home, I have coffee with your congressman. We go to the different coffee shops, and it's just sit on down and join me one day, enjoy some coffee. You're my constituent, right? I work for you. I need to hear what's important to you. So let's have coffee, and I invite our constituents out there too. Let's have coffee together. We make that announcement. We put that flyer on out there, and I need to hear more people of Guam, because that warmth from the people, the warmth of the island, really helps me when I go back there. So at least I can get some vitamin D. Take that with me.
I give career day presentations for students. I always talk about how being an elected official means that you need to be a communicator to your constituency. You need to let them know what's happening, what's the work that you're doing, and how you're accomplishing what you're doing and what they elected you to do. So, not to liken myself to you as a news reporter, but I do feel that I have a responsibility to report back to the people of Guam every step of the way. Whatever meeting that is to bring Guam to the table, whatever that is, every ask that I'm going after to ensure that Guam has the hardened infrastructure, not just inside the base, to ensure that we have, a forward presence to secure the island and the nation, but also thinking about our people who are living the same lives as the people inside the base. So making sure that infrastructure is equal and bringing parity to the people of Guam. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. I think we can also really focus on that workforce development aspect, because as the growth is going on outside, the population is not only going to increase inside the base, right? It's going to be outside the base, and we need to continue that workforce development. So I've done that over the past several terms in the legislature, increasing the Manpower Development Fund to the Guam Community College for training and for boot camps, all of these different things for apprenticeships. And we've done it to support different industries around the island through the apprenticeship program. We just passed a bill a couple of months ago to secure that funding and to secure that credit for all of these businesses who are building up the workforce by providing on-the-job training. So I think that is another focus, that if we can get our local workforce trained up, skilled up to be able to provide this service, and if that's not meeting the needs, to bring in more workforce here to help not just inside the base but outside the base, something absolutely vital to the growth of our entire island.
There's always going to be political interests out there trying to keep you from being effective, and that's, it's self-evident in the fact that we had all that to go through, nothing materialized from it, and then here we are today, and there's none of that. There's none of that distraction nonsense originating from political detractors trying to derail the current guy sitting in there, And really, if you're really going to evaluate what's been going on with the current office, there are some very, very specific things that have occurred that if you really wanted to go out there and file complaints against him, you could. We don't do that because that's just not how we operate. But there's an absence of that today, because again, we've returned back to this almost hush-hush political environment where advocacy for the people is taking a back seat in order for there to be a political playing field that puts things, that hides things rather than tries to bring things to light. But on our end, we've been vetted. We've gone through so many investigations, and there's been absolutely no charges filed. Nothing's materialized on that end, and it's not because there's a lack of any willingness for something like that to take place. You take a look at the Congress today, and you have a certain member, George Santos, who he was charged. Within 9 months he was removed from office. And when there's something there, they absolutely take the necessary steps to be able to have the due process run its full course. We've just gone through a lot of political dirt that, if it comes up again in this election, I told my family, I said, it's just obviously, if that happens, it's more of the same. But it's also more of the same for the same reasons. And it's trying to distract, it's trying to derail. And if we're really in this for the people of Guam, and if public service is truly the purpose for why we're doing this, then we will take whatever comes, and we will stay as focused and make good things happen.
Because I really think, I had this metaphor that I was thinking of this morning. When you get on an airplane, it would be lovely if the pilot was somebody that you knew, that was part of your family, that you were friends with. But the most important thing is that person has to have the experience to fly that plane and keep you safe, right?
Yep.
The office of Congress to me is the same. The Office of Congress needs somebody who has the experience to be able to have a vision and fly the people of Guam through some really choppy, dangerous waters and get us to a destination, right? And it's wonderful if the person who's in the cockpit is somebody that you like, or somebody that you know, or somebody that you're related to. That's great. But it also needs to be somebody who understands the professional requirements of that office, because there's so much that can be done. And if we approach it that way, and we approach it as a place where in those 2 years you can actually accomplish something, you know, it's less about, I mean, it's wonderful to give kudos to folks or to say, you know, we need a statue for the people of Guam. That's lovely, right? But the people of Guam are suffering from a high cost of living. They're not being given Social Security. We've lost compact impact funding, and we shouldn't be bashing our head against the wall saying, oh, we lost it, you have to give it back to us. We're not going to get it back. We have to think of creative new ways to make up that shortfall and to get that support, because I'll tell you what, the kids that aren't going to school at Simon Sanchez, they don't have time for politics or for, you know, nice words or, oh, I wrote a letter to ask someone to help out. That's not going to actually, we all know it, it's not going to turn into a school. And those kids don't have time. They've lost years to COVID, and now they're losing years to a school that was damaged by Mawar.
For the full interviews from these candidates and more election coverage, visit KUAM News YouTube channel. See you on primary day this August 3rd.